Yeah, I was kind of a weird guy. I mean, I studied a lot of yoga.
Yeah.
I mean, before that, I did 3 hours of yoga a day for years. I had a martial arts studio. I was very into the subconscious mind. I had a hypnotherapy practice at the time, so I knew the power of the mind, but I didn't know that it could work to this extent,
Yeah.
I mean, so I wanted to see if I could take it to the next level, and I thought, well, when you're weighing what you know against what you don't know, there's risk involved, but if you have a plan, you might actually wind up somewhere. So I took everything that I knew, and I just kind of trusted myself. I just kind of went for it. Anyway, I decided that when I was gonna clear on that image of what I wanted, I would surrender it to this mind, because I couldn't heal it, Joe Dispenza, but this intelligence, if it got the proper instructions, could. So 6.5 weeks of utter dismay, dark night of the soul. Couldn't get my mind to do what I wanted it to do. I was all over the board. I was frustrated, angry, and things got worse. And then I wouldn't quit, though, so it would take me hours to reconstruct my spine. And whenever I lost my focus, and I started thinking about living in a wheelchair, should I sell my home, should I sell my practice, I'd stop and start all over again, because that wasn't the image. Like when you're facing crisis, we tend to focus on what we don't want to have happen instead of what we do want to have happen. So
when you say you were reconstructing your spine, like what were you doing?
I was a little guy
Yeah.
with a trowel, was a mason, and I was kind of just running this trowel up my vertebrae, and just reconstructing it. And I can draw T8, T9, T10, T11, T12. No, I can draw it upside down left-handed. I know those vertebrae sideways, So the problem was that I just couldn't get my mind to do what I wanted to do, and so it would take me hours to get through it. And then 6.5 weeks, it was just like I hit a tennis ball in the sweet spot. I hit a golf ball just right. Something clicked,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, what took me 3-4 hours to do, I was doing in 45 minutes. I was firing and wiring circuits in my brain. I was practicing being present and paying attention, and it's a skill. The more you practice it, I think the better you get at it. So then I started noticing significant changes in my body. I mean, big changes. My pain levels went away. I got a lot of motor function, sensory function back. I started feeling really good.
Yeah.
And then I started correlating what I was doing inside of me with what was happening in my body and outside of me. And then I was like a dog on a bone, and I just knew. I just started looking forward to doing it, and it just got better and easy. Anyway, 10.5 weeks, I was back on my feet and back running, my clinic at 12 weeks, and I just made a deal with myself that if I ever was able to stand up again, I'd spend the rest of my life studying the mind-body connection, mind over matter. So what I do is I hopefully provide the proper information for people to transcend some limitation or some obstacle in their body or in their life.
Yeah.
I had a goal because they told me that if I decided against the surgery, and of course they thought I hit my head, that I had a head injury, no one would do this, or I had PTSD, that my goal was 3 months. They didn't want to see anything because, bones usually take about 2 to 3 months to heal. And these bones are called medullary burns. They're spongy bones. So medullary bones just are more vascular in nature. So it wasn't anything to do for the first 3 months.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just a constant overcoming of myself every day. And then, I just knew that the day that I was supposed to walk, I just got up. I just knew it was time to walk. And they wanted to put me in this body cast for 6 months, and they fitted me for it. They molded it to my body, and I put it on once, and I was just like, "There's no way I'm gonna live like this." And just and I never have pain in my back. I never really have any limitations. So and then I got interested in spontaneous remissions. Like, does anybody else experience what I experienced? And so then I started asking questions like, how did this all happen? Genes make proteins. Proteins create structure and function, and the expression of proteins is the expression of life. Did I change genes? So I started looking into the mind-body connection, started researching, conventional texts, and I'm a decent background in science, and I couldn't find the answers anywhere in the conventional textbooks. And then you start looking at epigenetics, neuroplasticity, the quantum model of reality, and all of a sudden I started realizing that there's a whole nother realm of science when you're no longer looking at normal. And so I started studying spontaneous remissions and interviewed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people all over the world to see what they were doing or what they did, either treating conventionally or unconventionally. Most of them were staying the same or getting worse, and all of a sudden they got better.
Yeah.
What happened there? So,
and did you find a consistency?
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. There were four very common things.
Can you tell me?
Yeah, first thing is that most people believe that there was an intelligence that lived within them, not outside of them, that was a resource if they could connect to it, just like I did, and begin to allow it to help them heal, it would be important. So there's nothing mystical about this intelligence, and some people had a religious take on it, some people just a spiritual take, some people were just pragmatists that they just trusted, the whole way. The second thing was that on some level they thought that they had contributed or they were responsible for their own health condition, that the 10 years of living in stress, and living in stress is living in survival, and stress, as you know, knocks the brain and body out of balance. And it's a scientific fact that the long-term effects of the hormones of stress downregulate genes and create disease. So people spend 70% of their life living in survival or living in stress, and no organism can live in emergency mode for that amount of time. And certain emotions that we feel when we react to people or conditions in our lives, that emergency state, the arousal of the brain and body, drives us to very primitive behaviors, and primitive thoughts, and they became aware that they had to stop being that person. That's a very important thing. They had to break the habit of being themselves.
Yeah.
And that's significant because they're not relying on now any drug, even though they're treating with drug or treatment or surgery. They're all of a sudden taking more responsibility of paying attention to how they think, noticing how they act or how they speak, or looking at how they feel, and stop blaming somebody from 20 years ago that they just decided that they had to make the changes. So they had to break the habit of being themselves. Third thing I thought was so fascinating was that they had to reinvent themselves. And they started thinking, well, God, if I had a chance, another shot at life, who would I be? And there's this concept in neuroscience called mental rehearsal. And when you close your eyes and you plan an action, or you rehearse mentally what you're about to do, if you're truly present, the brain doesn't know the difference between what's going on out there and what's going on in here, that the imagery that you're creating, the brain captures as an experience. So then the experience begins to enrich the brain. So they, over time, began to install the neurological hardware in their brain, the platform of who they would become. And as they started doing that, and they started overcoming fear or anger or hostility or pain or suffering, they started getting happy. And they started feeling these heartfelt emotions of freedom and gratitude for no reason. And I think that when they started feeling that feeling independent of what was going on in their life, in other words, they weren't waiting for their healing to happen so they could feel grateful. They were feeling grateful before the healing, which is gratitude is the ultimate state of receiving. I mean, when you receive something, where you've just received something, or something's happening to you, or something's happened to you, you feel gratitude, you say thank you. Well, the body, as the unconscious mind, it doesn't know the difference between an experience that creates an emotion and an emotion that you're fabricating by thought alone. So the body starts to feel gratitude. It's believing it's in the actual experience of being healed. So, and the research shows, Chris, that the environment signals the gene, and the end product of an experience in the environment is an emotion. So then you can signal genes ahead of the environment if you begin to embrace emotions before the experience. And genes begin to make proteins, and proteins give you the expression of life.